mean, really, if you think about it, our whole lives are centered around making food, growing food, preparing food, and eating food. So it's always in your brain. And if you don't have a healthy relationship, you're going to have an unhealthy lifestyle.
Hello and welcome to An Idol Called Food. I'm your host, JT Tapias, and today we have a special guest, someone who is a friend. We go back. I'm living now in South Florida. She lives in Tampa, my old stomping grounds, and she came through the program, did amazing, and she was gracious enough to allow us to interview her about her 90-day transformation program. Allow me to introduce you to Annie Everett, a remarkable individual who has transformed her life through dedication and resilience by participating in the 90-day transformation program. Annie achieved an incredible milestone of losing 30 pounds in 90 days without experiencing any hunger or need to count calories, macros, or points. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here today.
No, it's my honor. I was, I'd been trying to do this for a while, and I know you had been really, really busy. So thank you so much for coming to the show. Tell us a little bit about your journey on the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan. I guess we can start off. Where were you when you first came to the program, weight-wise?
Oh, when I found you, I was almost at 170 pounds. For reference, I'm 5'8", and I've always been pretty much an in shape kind of person, as far as active, but I wasn't eating right, and I was working a lot of hours, and I wasn't even walking anymore. I was just going into the office and eating whatever was there, and pretty soon the weight just stuck on. And my boss actually was going through you, and all of a sudden I saw him start trimming down, drinking a lot more water all of a sudden. And I was like, what are you doing? What's your secret? And he's like, oh, I'm doing the Empty Your Bucket plan. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to need you to text me that because I can't afford to buy new clothes.
Was that Pastor JJ?
It was, yes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, he had an amazing transformation as well. So you're 170 pounds at the time you came through the program. I remember your last check-in numbers you were weighing at 135 pounds. How long has it been since you graduated the program, and what are you weighing now?
So it's been 2 years, just under 2 years, and now I'm at 125.3 today.
You're even lower than after finishing the program. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's chat about that, because I think that that's a big concern for most people on a weight loss journey. They talk about losing weight, but oftentimes, people gain the weight back, and sometimes with a vengeance, but you've been able to actually keep it off and lose some more, right?
Yes. I've actually lost 10 more pounds, and really I did it without trying, just following the regular Empty Your Bucket plan. The biggest change I made, which in your plan, you allow for a glass of wine at night. And so I had been doing that, and I cut that out. And I think that's where the other 10 pounds just fell right off after so much time of not doing that and staying consistent in everything else. That was the secret.
Wow. I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because a lot of times people say, well, JT, can I drink during this program? And, I don't know if you remember this, but I always say there's two ways to do this program. There is a version, and there is and there's a loose version, right? And the loose version says, hey, you can have up to 2 drinks a week, or one glass of wine a night, if that's your thing. But I always say, empty calories impact this significantly, especially those that come from alcohol. And so I'm glad you're saying that. So you took that out. Does that mean you're not drinking at all, or once in a while you allow yourself to have a drink here and there?
So when I first started with you, I was still having my 1 glass of wine a night. And then I cut with you when I would get to a certain point. I think you probably remember this. Like, I was able to drop 8 pounds really fast. And then I got really stuck at 161, and I got so frustrated. And then I got stuck again around 155 for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then I got stuck again at I think it was 143. And then when I finally got to 136, I was only having about 2 or 3 glasses of wine a week. I mean, just the small portions. But when I quit that's when it all just came off completely. And I really think it was because I was having it at night, and it was that sugar and everything you told us not to do. Had I not done it, I probably would have been here 2 years ago. So
That's too funny. This morning, so today's Wednesday. Today's one of my check-in days with members, and one of the things that I said today was, hey, just remember that every single thing that I say, no matter how insignificant you think it is, it's there for a reason, right? And I think oftentimes we have a tendency to what some members call gamify things. They're like, well, let me add this little bit here, or oh, that's not a big deal. But obviously you took out this small little component and you saw this massive change, when it comes to your weight, which is crazy.
So basically everything that JT says is right. So just do what he says. Just save yourself the time and just do what he says.
You need to hang out with my wife.
Probably. One thing that I thought was really helpful, I'll never forget this moment in the journey, because you and I began in January of 2022. And I had checked you out in October, November, deciding, do I want to do this? Am I going to be committed? And then that was my Christmas gift to myself, was you were my Christmas present. And actually I was my Christmas present, because I gave myself my body that I always wanted back. And there's a few things I want to add and talk about that. But first, one of the things that really helped me was the check-in that you're talking about, that accountability. I remember very distinctly in April. So I had been in the program for almost my 90 days. I was almost there. And I wanted to have something that I definitely should not have been eating at a restaurant. And it was by chance to check-in day. And what held me accountable was like, I don't want to tell JT what I did, so I'm just not going to do it. But that accountability is what we really need in our lives, not just in our eating habits, but in our Christian lives as well. We need to have friends that will check in and call you out and make you feel like, no, I better not do this, because I know they're going to call me out. And I needed that. And that's what helped me a lot to get through.
That's so good, because, the word accountability for Christians is an old thing, but for, the secular world, they've recently picked it up, and you hear everyone now, oh, accountability this, accountability that. But for us Christians, that's been a common thing, from the beginning of time. And the fact that you say that, it reminds me of so many instances where people have said, I was going to eat the pizza, or I was going to eat this thing. And I just remember that I had to check in on Saturday, and it was just that held me back from doing the thing that I shouldn't have been doing. And I always say that third-party unbiased accountability is what we all need in our lives, right? Because some of us say, well, my spouse will keep me accountable, or a friend will keep me accountable, but it's not the same level of accountability, because there's just this difference with that third unbiased, accountability, and especially when you invest in a program. I think there's that pressure as well to get a return on investment. And so, I jokingly say, when you pay attention. Yeah. And so it's the accountability.
That's the point, and the accountability that third parties give, like you say, is in love, but they're not tied to that person. So they don't say, well, because I love you, I'll let you have that piece of pizza. They love you enough to say, are you supposed to have that?
Right.
The answer is no, I'm not. And you need to have somebody on the outside that cares enough about you that call you out on the hard things, I think.
That's right. For sure. So Annie, something we haven't mentioned here, and I just remembered now, you weren't a newbie to this. Like weren't you a trainer at some point, or what's your background when it comes to exercise?
I used to have a very interesting relationship with food and working out. Part of my recovery story, if you will allow me to have a recovery story, is that I had really poor self-image because of a relationship I had as a teenager. And so I got into an unhealthy relationship with exercising, where I would exercise 4 to 5 hours a day. Eventually, thinking that I needed to look like images that are not realistic in pornography world, and began try to look like that. And I competed in several bikini fitness competitions, but I never did it in a healthy way. I was exercising 5 to 6 hours a day. I was under 500 calories a day, restricted. That's not sustainable, number one. And number two, it really took a toll on my body, so that as soon as I quit doing that, and we're talking like just had a sandwich, I mean, I immediately bloated up to 140 in no time, because my body hadn't had anything that was healthy. I was doing everything the wrong way, unfortunately. And after all of that happened is when I quit the gym and I got a better self. Thankfully, the Lord introduced me to a recovery program called Celebrate Recovery, where I could work on my poor self-image and recognize that my image is actually in Jesus Christ, and He made
Amen.
me this way. And once I was able to restore that healthy sense of view, then I was able to change the relationship I had with the gym and food. And that's where you came into play. But it took some time to get to a part where I accepted this myself as I have been created. So I'm grateful that God took me through this process. And then I feel like in exactly the right time, I was introduced to you through Pastor JJ Johnson, who was looking better and better every week I saw him. And I was like, I just need to know what it is you're doing. And he was just real honest. He's like, here, I'll send you the text, and found you. And I really appreciated that you had a Christian foundation on it and understood that what I was talking about with my unhealthy relationship, and that I wanted to change that. And when I first heard about your plan and we sat down and did a Zoom call, I think it just made sense. It sounded almost too easy, to be completely honest. And I was like, well, what am I going to lose if this doesn't work at this point, other than the sign up cost? Because he's making it sound like this is just way too easy. I've never not counted everything. I've never not starved myself. I've never not been in the gym for a minimum of 2.5 hours. So I really almost didn't believe that your plan worked. Wow. So I was like, I'm going to spend the money for Christmas. And if it doesn't work, then I can say it didn't work. Right. And then I can say I've tried literally everything, because I'd never tried anything like Empty Your Bucket Plan before.
Wow. That's
this
amazing.
Was the first time, no counting anything. It was very simple what to do. You made it very clear I could eat as much as I wanted of what I was allowed to have. And I lost the 8 pounds very quickly, the first 8 pounds, which is what bought me in. And then when I would get stuck and get frustrated, you just kept pushing me along in those accountability check-ins. Like, what are you doing wrong? And I'd have to be honest with you. Well, and right. It really changed my whole life. My whole lifestyle is completely different as a result of being part of your plan. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not saying that just because I'm on here. My whole life, you talked about getting up early in the mornings, and I used to do that, but that was because I was having wine at night and I was waking up at 3 a.m. That's not healthy. Now I'm going to bed at 8:30 at night every night, waking up at 5, going for my 1.5 hour walk in the morning. And I have a fresh, clear mind starting the entire day, making good decisions. Just my whole life is completely different as a result of being with you, honestly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So Annie, I know you're pretty involved in an amazing ministry called Celebrate Recovery. So first of all, can we start off by saying what the slogan is, which I think is great for Celebrate? What's the slogan for Celebrate Recovery? Who is it for?
It's for anyone who has any kinds of hurts, hangups, or habits. So if you're breathing, that means you've either hurt someone or you've been hurt. So you are welcome. It's for everybody.
So this is like a 12-step for Christians, right? It is a faith-based recovery program. And so you're well acquainted with the world of addictions and substance abuse and these things. One of the things that we talk a lot about inside of the Empty Your Bucket Plan is that we look at we have a view of nutrition through the lens of addiction, because we believe we're all addicted to one extent or the other to food, right? Specifically to that dopamine hit that we get from high insulin yielding foods. Do you believe addiction to food is as potent as the addiction to other substances?
Oh, maybe more so, because with other substances, you don't need it to survive, whereas with food, you do.
Exactly. Right. So it's that double-edged sword of where, okay, this food is getting me in trouble, but yeah, it's not like drugs or alcohol where you can just quit. I mean, not that it's that easy, but at least you can say, I don't need those things in order to survive. But when it comes to food, you still have to be able to manage those healthy boundaries and stay away from the things that you're not supposed to be eating that are, harming you, which is incredible. So the way,
with the constant tension of people gifting you food, gifting you sugar, inviting you to do things around food. I mean, really, if you think about it, our whole lives are centered around making food, growing food, preparing food, and eating food. So It's
That's right.
always in your brain. And if you don't have a healthy relationship, you're going to have an unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because you know, the way I tell people this works is because, I mean, would you agree also with the idea that food is not just, you know, uh, food is how people express love, affection. You know, when we're growing up, when we're babies, if we start crying, they hand us a bottle of, you know, a bottle of milk, and then all of a sudden we get wired to associate that food is the way that anytime we have friction or adversity, that we can
Nice
calm
cream.
down. Yeah. And grieve through food, right? And so
Or even if you read books at school, you get pizza. I mean, it's everything. All of our rewards are around things that are not the right thing to have rewards around, honestly.
Right. So the way it generally works is we're having a bad day, something is happening. You know, there's adversity, there's friction. We're happy, sad, upset, any of these high, low emotions. The first thing we want to do is we want to alleviate that friction. The safest way to do that is through food. So we start scanning for a dopamine hit, and it comes usually in the form of food. Similar to substances, right? You know, I also have a past with you know, substance abuse, which is really what led me into this kind of work from a different perspective. For me, it wasn't food. For me, it was other things. But I remember being upset, or I remember something not going right, or just having a long week, and then just wanting that dopamine hit. For me, it was the nightlife, it was alcohol, it was drugs, it was all those things. And the deceitful part of my addiction was that I felt like I was in control, because I would only do it on the weekends, right? It was a weekend thing for me, but it was so out of control on the weekends that it actually ended up affecting my heart. I had heart surgery just 5 years ago, even though that was almost 15, 16 years ago. But it got to the point where it was so out of control on the weekends that, you know, it affected my body. And I couldn't understand at the time. Had you said to me, JT, you are addicted to these substances, I would have said, you're crazy. You know, look at me. Cause I was working out, I looked a certain way. But yet all these things were out of control. I was tackling the wrong, I had these internal issues. I had these traumas from my childhood that I was trying to deal with. I was trying to numb through alcohol and drugs. I believe that out of 99% of the people that come to our program, excuse me 1 second. Okay. 95% of the people that come through our program are oftentimes battling with childhood trauma, and the way that they're numbing their emotions, especially for Christians, right? We say that food is the Christian crack. It is through food. What would you say? What would you say to those people that, I mean, do you identify with that? Do you think that some of these things that had to do with food were coming from trauma? Was this a way for you to?
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How did that? What did that look like for you?
Well, first of all, food is a place where it kind of takes down the barriers of anything. So if you're anxious or you're nervous and you're around some new people, what do? You snack on something. You put something in your hand, you put something in your mouth. It just makes it easier to not have to answer a question or say anything. You can just kind of fit in. At the end of the day, for me, what I was seeing is not being an alcoholic, to be clear, but that I was looking forward to my way of chilling out, numbing down, was to have a glass of wine and make myself some popcorn every single night. That what I learned in all of this, and I should know this being in a recovery program, that whatever it is that you're trying to numb, if you're trying to do something to block out a feeling or an emotion or something, that's where you're creating that unhealthy lifestyle choice, because now you're ignoring a trigger of something that you need to address, and instead you're numbing it out with something else. And for me, it was eating badly at night most of the time, and then just being too tired in the morning to go exercise as a result. So it was just becoming a very unhealthy cycle of insanity at the end of the day.
That's right. So it's like the person that takes, when it comes to drugs, they take the uppers, and then when the party's over, they take the downers so that they can fall asleep. So it's like you're chasing one bad thing with another. And so you were eating at night and then exercising in the day to sort of mitigate some of those choices. And it becomes a cycle, right? I think for a lot of people on the other side that are listening to this and resonating with some of the things that you're saying and thinking, yeah, I have those behaviors. I always tell people to be introspective and to really dig deep and figure out where that's coming from. And at the same time, I think back when I was caught up in these things, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like I knew there was something there from my childhood, but there were so many things in my childhood. I'm like, what is the one thing that's affecting me? Is it the fact that I didn't grow up with a dad? Is it the fact that, my mom was there, but was always working. And so she wasn't paying attention to me. Was it, the environment that I grew up in, which is, so just, it was violent and dysfunctional. It was just a bunch of different things. And I don't know that it was one specific thing that led me to the addictions or if it was an accumulation of that. So I think that's where people get lost. It's like, okay, yes, I know I have some internal things. Where do I even start? There's so many issues that could be plaguing me. Where do I even start? What would you say to that person? What's a good starting point for us to be introspective and start to really tackle the real problem, which is not calories, macros, or points, or keto, Atkins, South Beach, or any of those dynamics that are going to resolve the issue, but us healing internally? Where would you say it would be the best place to start?
Yeah, your only real true healing, because the only person that can really heal you is your creator. And that's in the Lord God himself. And you have to come to the point to where you recognize that you can't do this life alone. You cannot take care of yourself. You can't fix everything. And the Lord can do that because he's the one who created you. He knows you better than anyone else. And he's the one who has called you by name to be who you were intended to be. And it's this broken world that's making us not be who we are, because we're choosing in our own selfish desires and whims and not living according to what he tells us to. And as soon as you start doing that, a lot more things get in alignment. One of the things you taught me that has been one of the truest, and I mean this, valuable things I've ever learned in my entire life was when I'm triggered about something, to ask myself why. And then after I answer that why, ask why that part. Why did I answer that? And you had me do that 7 times. And the 7th answer to my why was the real reason. That was probably most likely the real thing that was actually hurting me, that was causing me to have a trigger in the first place to go to something else. And I often use that now. Since I started with you, I've become a biblical counselor, and I use that tool often with a lot of my clients and my patients, because that's what gets us down to what is really bothering you. Is it that you had a bad day? Okay, why did you have a bad day? Well, someone cut me off at work. Well, how did you get cut off at work? What do you mean? Well, they didn't acknowledge me. They didn't respect me. So you have a respect problem. You're feeling like you're not being respected. What other areas in your life are you not feeling respected? Well, this, that, and the other. And it would just get down to where it's like, well, I'm not even respecting myself. And it's like, well, why do you have that low self-esteem? Do you not know who you are in who God has called you to be? And then that's where the shift really started changing for me. And I think now, as a result of being able to share this program and the things that you taught me, I think it's helped a lot of people, honestly.
Whew. Okay, that's super powerful. We're talking about an exercise called 7 levels deep, which, thank you so much for breaking that down. It's like one question piggybacks off the next, because we have a tendency to answer these questions in a very superficial way. So I have people that come into the program and say, I want to lose weight. It's like, okay, well, why do you want to lose weight? Yeah, I want to look better. Oh, I want to feel better. Okay, well, why do you want to look and feel better? And then when you start digging deep, it's like that 7th question that finally, an example is that person would say, well, I just didn't feel acknowledged as a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to be acknowledged now as an adult. And it's little things like that. It's those little tiny triggers. It's things that people have said to you in the past, even, long time ago, that you might not even remember. And yet it's affecting your subconscious in a way where now you have challenges with addiction and dependencies. And it's just resolving that one issue. Here's this one for me, which is crazy, right? A little bit of my past. I was a former professional soccer player. I was playing in Colombia and I was in the minor divisions at the time. I had made the jump over to Division One, but I was close. And I had a coach who we were doing some drills, and I won the drill. It was a race with the ball. We had to go around some cones and get back. When I got back there, the coach said to the other 5 guys that were competing against me, we were all competing against each other, but I won. So he looked at them and he said, and by the way, it's not that I was rich. It's just that I was playing with kids that were coming from very poor neighborhoods in Colombia. So I seemed as the rich kid. And he referred to me as, I can't believe you let the little rich kid beat you. And I was about 14 years old when this happened, right? I can tell you, Annie, that anytime that I'm at the gym and I want to give up, or I'm coming up with excuses on why I shouldn't train, I've turned the tables though, right? I made this positive because at one point it just kind of broke me down. I'm like, I can't believe he didn't believe in me. He thought I was less than them, right? And that affected me negatively. But then I reframed it. Anytime that I come up with excuses, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to do an extra rep, that voice is so loud and it pushes me to push more and do more, right? But this came through a lot of work. Like I mentioned, at one point, it used to break me down. And so, I mentioned this so people on the other side watching this, so you can start being introspective and asking yourself powerful questions, one after another. If it's very basic, why do I have this dependency for food? Well, I just love food. Well, why do I love food? Right. And continue going down, asking yourself one question after another, because at the end, you're going to be able to figure out what is your trigger. Like, what is the thing that really moves you in the direction of those negative dependencies?
It's really hard to get that honest with yourself, but if you're brave enough to do it, that's where the real change starts to happen. You can't have transformation unless you recognize what needs to be changed first. Okay. And so one of those, I have my very first 7 whys that I had with you on here. And at the very bottom was that I did have bad self-image. Like I was acknowledging it. Like that's my real issue. And then when I stopped drinking the wine, my real problem is that I was trying to run away from the hard of the day instead of just facing that it was a hard day and just acknowledging that.
Facing the music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think if we were to put a subtitle over this particular aspect of this conversation, would you agree that what we're saying here is that most people are tackling the wrong thing when it comes to weight loss?
Absolutely. They're looking for a certain number on the scale, or they're looking for a certain size on an outfit. And that is not the issue. That is just so superficial as to what's really going on, as to why you're looking for that number. Why are you looking for that number? Why does it have to be that size number? That's what I would start with. Why?
Right. Hence the reason we have a multidisciplinary approach to nutrition, because we realize that it's not just the one thing. I think most people that I speak to that are inquiring about the program, I'll ask them, what got you to reach out? And they'll say, well, I've been on keto, Atkins, South Beach, Whole30, macro counting, calorie counting, point counting, and nothing has worked for me, right? Or those programs aren't sustainable. And the tendency is to blame it on the last coach or the last program. When, what I say is, hey, all these things work. If you actually do them, they work, right? But the reason you keep falling off goes beyond any dynamics. Any coach, no matter how good that coach is, no matter how much experience that coach has, we got to heal from within. And what I hear you saying is that healing, right, can look a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, the one that heals you is, Jesus having that relationship and coming to him, having an identity that is cemented in your relationship to him and what he says about you in his word, right? And which is, even when you came through, I mean, yes, I've always been bold. This has always been part of what we do, mind, body, spirit. But now, because we understand at a deeper level that it goes beyond the mind, it goes beyond the body. And it's really, as one of my Pastor E. Mason that I interviewed last week on here, he said, I started to fix the problem when I realized I didn't have a food problem. I had a heart problem.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I have learned, is that it's heart issues. And it's the heart issue. Once that's resolved, everything else really does fall into place. And it's a constant correction. It's a constant course correction. You don't just have it in the bag. I'm sure every day you have to wake up and say, like you said, you have to, that one last rep at the gym. Anybody can be a quitter. Sure, anybody can say, I don't want to do this anymore. But the reason you keep going at it is because you have a bigger reason. It's not about the number on the scale anymore. It's about the integrity of wanting to live a life that's full and an abundant life that you're promised through Jesus Christ. So why not do the things that are right instead?
Amen. Amen. I love that. I love that. So Annie, what would you say in terms of like your faith and in growing in your faith? What has this done for your faith? This whole process.
It's been great discipline for me because it helps order and align your day. And God is a God of order. He told us to get up, and he got up in a great morning before it was very early. And that's when he prayed. And, you suggest to your clients to get up early. And I thought that was a great idea at first. And I was doing it because I was automatically waking up anyways at that time. But it did finally, once I got settled into a healthy routine, it got me into where I was doing that and then having my quiet time, and really aligned my day to where even my family would say to you, wow, she acts more calm at night. She's in a better mood. She's more rested, more happy. And it was all a result of just all the tiny right decisions of doing the next right thing. Waking up early, giving the day to the Lord, going for your walk and exercising, and then just sticking to what is important to be doing in the next right thing, and not letting the day take you, but you taking the day.
That's amazing. So last week we shot a video, and the opening line to the video was, Christians are the most undisciplined out of the three major religions.
So true.
Right? Judaism, Islam, they're well known for their discipline, right?
Yeah.
And my question is, we have the truth. Why are we suffering in this area that is so important? And you said something that is basic but profound, which is, hey, get up earlier. And as a byproduct of getting earlier and having an extra hour or two in the day, now you can actually get your devotional time in. Now you're learning God's character by reading his word. That's simple, right? Because prior to that, most people would say, well, I don't have the time. I'm just busy. As one of my mentors says, if you have time to eat breakfast, you have time to read your Bible. And fitting this all in within the parameters of the program becomes a way, right? A tangible way for us to actually also execute on those spiritual disciplines, which oftentimes, if we don't have, if we don't schedule those things, they just don't happen. And so I think within those 90 days, we talk about getting up early, feeding your mind, your body, your spirit. And it sounds like it's had a profound impact on your spiritual life as well, which is amazing.
Yeah, well, the other thing you had us do at night, which really goes in with the Celebrate Recovery program too, is at the end of the day, if you remember, you have us fill out very quickly, how did it go? How did we feel? What we did right? What can we do better tomorrow? And that really is a spiritual discipline altogether, more than just what you're eating and you're exercising with your body, but in your mind, in the way that you've treated others. What have you done right? What could you do better tomorrow? And ending your day in that prayer of, God, thank you for today, but let me do better tomorrow. Bible before breakfast, Bible before bed. That will work.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, the power of journaling and being introspective and not just, reactively going day after day without really questioning, am I doing better? How can I do better? Is so powerful.
Yeah.
And if you met someone, a stranger in an elevator, right? And they shared with you that they're struggling with their weight, it's affecting their health, what would you say to that person?
Well, other than recommending them to you, because that is what definitely works, I would ask them, like, how much protein are you getting? Are you walking every day? Are you drinking enough water? And I would say, what's really going on? Like, why are you denying yourself your best life? That's great. And then when I heard that from them, I would say, have you ever heard of Empty Your Bucket Plan? Because it really is worth it. It is. And I've recommended so many people to check you out, because you're not doing anything that is rocket science. You're doing something that makes sense, but we don't have enough people that are sensible out there to teach this. So
that's so good. So that elevator question comes from an actual real story. I had a janitor, I lived at 345 Bayshore for, when I was a single guy. I owned a condo there for almost 5 years. So I would come home at the time, I had the gym in Tampa. I would come home to have lunch. I'd get in the elevator and I would always bump into this janitor and we would just have small talk, right? And the janitor was about 25, 30 pounds overweight, right? He was a shorter guy. He carried it all on his waist. And he would just see me coming through and be like, man, what do you do? How many hours do you spend at the gym? And I'm like, I only go to the gym 3 times a week. And he's like, well, how do you look like that? I'm like, food. And so the story became that one day after him asking me, what do I do at the gym? I work out every day. Look at this. I haven't been able to get rid of this. From the first floor to the third floor where I lived, there was about, 30 seconds between going into the elevator and getting to my floor. I said to the guy, walk for 45 minutes a day, cut out starches for 6 weeks, right? And drink at least 80 ounces of water and get back to me. So I see the guy 40 days later and he looks like a radically different person. And I go, what did you do? And he said, I walked, I cut out starches and I've been drinking water. And it was like the 30-second advice that made all the difference in the world. And it's just simple, but profound and powerful things like that. It
even works for my mom. Just turned 75 last week, and she finally asked me, like, what is it that you do? I just need to do it. And I basically said the same thing as you. I was like, cut out the carbs. I said carbs, not starches. And I said, walk 40 minutes every single day, eat more protein and drink lots of water. And she's the smallest she's ever been. She's a size 6, and which is healthy for her age. You don't want her to be, heavy when you're getting older. It's bad on your bones. So I'm so glad that it worked for her too. It works for anybody if you just take care of yourself, and it's not hard.
Amazing. Well, Annie, I'm so proud of you. I'm happy that you've been able to make this into a lifestyle. It sounds like, you're not exerting a ton of energy in order to make these things happen. And that's the beauty of this. I just want to commend you for your follow through. To all honesty, guys watching this, we hadn't talked in a long time. And yeah, I reached out and I said, hey, can we do this interview? And in this interview, she surprised me by saying she's lower in weight than when she actually ended the program, 125, which is what we tell people. Hey, we don't just teach you how to lose weight. We teach you how to sustain it. And Annie is a testament to that. So thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for, being gracious enough to be with us on this interview. And I just, you're inspiring a lot of people. I know you know this, but people are watching, and people are always inspired by seeing others change. And when we change physically, it's one of the most tangible forms of change. And it really, really sparks hope in people beyond just the physical. And so I want to commend you for that. Continue to be a light and salt to this earth. And I think what you're doing is pretty amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for all that you've done for me and for so many others as a result of what you taught me. I really appreciate it. And it goes out, that your message goes out far and wide as a result. So thank you. I'm really grateful.
Praise God. Praise God. All right, guys, you heard it from Annie. If you're on the fence, you're watching this, you're struggling, you've done all the crazy things out there.